Imagine for a moment that I could guarantee you that the world is going to end in 1 month. 1 month. What would you change? What would you do? I suspect that a lot of things that we would normally do suddenly aren't important. Wouldn't have to worry about your pension in another couple of years. Wouldn't have to worry about your job, trying to get a promotion. Students, you wouldn't have to do your homework. Wouldn't make any difference. The Lord's coming in 1 month. I've had the unfortunate pleasure, I think, and experience when someone has been told they have a terminal illness and they only have a few months to live. What I've noticed is the change that takes place in their heart and in their lives. I knew one man, he owned his own business. He had 7 children. The youngest was only 5 years old. And he was told he was going to die within a matter of months. Suddenly, his job wasn't that important. Suddenly, his family was very important. His whole life changed. Why? Because all of a sudden, he had this revelation of what's really important, that our relationships, our love, the way that we connect one another, that is the most important thing. I would like to suggest that Advent gives us this change of perspective. That's why the gospel is so dramatic. It wants to shock us, perhaps put a little bit of fear into us, into what we need to do. But the Lord doesn't want us to be just people of fear. He wants us to be people of action. Stand tall, he says, before the Son of Man. Lift up your heads and see. Well, you know, I grew up in the 60s when there was the Cold War. People were building bomb shelters in their basements. Why? Because there was always this danger of a nuclear war between Russia and the United States. Now, the month was October, and back in those days before Vatican II, we had 3 Sundays in which we read a gospel very similar to today. And October was a very nice month, kind of like it was this year for us. And so my parents decided that we would go to my grandmother's cottage for the weekends. And therefore we'd go to Mass in a little church in a little village. And for 3 Sundays, the priest talked about the wrath of God and the end of the world. But this particular Sunday, he was talking about the war between Russia and the United States. And he said, you know, the shortest distance between those 2 countries is right over Canada. And if there's a nuclear war, we're going to get bombed out. All of a sudden, the roof was crashing in. This horrible sound, and everyone started screaming, and people jumped into the aisles to get out of the church. We were kind of sitting on the side, and the aisle was full. So my parents pulled us over against the wall in case the ceiling was coming in. And all of a sudden, there was total silence. The roof did not cave in. But the huge cross, the iron rod cross on the top of the steeple, must have been loosened by the ringing of the bell, and it fell backwards, fell on the roof, rolled all the way down, landed on the car next to my father's. We had an old Buick at the time, and Buicks at that time used to have round portholes in them. So this cross fell on the car, slid down the hood, punched out one of the portholes on my father's Buick, and then jumped back up on the car. And everyone was amazed. That's not really the type of fear that we want to have today, is it? But it's a good example and something that's obviously made quite an impression on me, that we need to be ready because we never know what is going to happen in our hearts and in our lives. Yes, we are people who are waiting for the end times. We are people waiting for judgment. And so this Advent season helps us to put aside all the busyness and all the other things that crowd our hearts and to ask that question, what are the priorities of our lives? What are the most important things? Are we going to be people who celebrate Advent and Christmas just like anyone else who didn't believe in God? Or is there a particular reason why we have this season of Advent? Yes, Christmas is going to be a busy time, families, cooking, all kinds of things. But this season of Advent helps us to prepare for that, to understand the mystery that we're really celebrating when we stop and think, God has taken on human flesh. Christ has become a human being. And now he is calling us to be his people, calling us to be his disciples. And so rather than fear, the Advent season is really about hope. We are called to be people of hope, people who dream, people of a vision of Christ coming one day, a vision of what we are called to be, children of God. But all of us in our heart, don't we wonderfully think about what's life all about? And when Jesus comes in the fullness of time, will he not reveal completely to us what our life was, what the core of existence is all about, the very existence of our life, and what matters and what does not matter? And so he invites us to be hearers of the word, to consider their life, to experience the light of Christ in our own hearts on the perspective of that day, that last day. And so the first Sunday of Advent always shocks us, always presents something to us that the end is coming indeed. And we don't know when that end will be. It's not going to be in a month, I hope, but nevertheless it's going to come. And so will what this Advent season look like from your point of view? Will it change the way that we look at life? Will it change the way that we live? Will we be people who are working with good works of love and kindness and care, so that when the Savior comes, he may rejoice, and that we may rejoice as well? So lift up your heads, stand up, your redemption is drawing near. It is here in one sense. Let us truly live it, so that when Christ comes, we're truly prepared.